Commander Alara Voss stared at the endless horizon of Kaelaris, her eyes tracing the jagged mountains and the shimmering blue plains that stretched beyond the human colony. She had been sent here by the Galactic peacekeepers to investigate strange incidents that had been reported over the past few weeks. The remote frontier planet had always been quiet, a peaceful outpost for humans trying to carve out a life among the stars. But recently, alarms had been raised. Settlers claimed that alien raiders, small in number but devastatingly precise, had attacked isolated settlements, leaving destruction in their wake. Alara adjusted her uniform and took a deep breath. She had served in many sectors, but something about Kaelaris felt different. There was a sense of calm now, but she could feel the tension in the air. People here had learned to survive on their own, to protect themselves from dangers the galaxy often ignored. And yet, despite their precautions, the reports of attacks were impossible to ignore. Her transport landed near the main colony. The settlement was modest, a collection of metal structures, solar arrays, and greenhouses. Humans moved briskly, carrying supplies and tending to their duties. Children played near a water stream that cut through the settlement, unaware of the shadows that sometimes crept along the horizon. Alara's presence was immediately noticed. Her command uniform and the insignia of the peacekeepers drew curious eyes, and whispers spread among the colonists. She was guided to the command center, a reinforced structure built on a hill overlooking the settlement. Inside, maps of Kaelaris' terrain and reports of recent attacks were spread across a wide table. Screens displayed real-time monitoring of nearby settlements. Alara studied the information carefully. The patterns were odd. The attacks were not random raids. They seemed almost calculated, as if the aliens knew where humans would be and struck at the weakest points. "You're Commander Voss?" a deep voice asked. Alara looked up to see a human soldier standing near the doorway. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with an easy confidence that came from years of training. His uniform bore insignia she did not immediately recognize. "Lieutenant Kael Rion," he introduced himself. "I've been assigned to help coordinate defense here." Alara nodded. "I've read your reports. You've managed to defend settlements against overwhelming odds." She studied him, noting his composed demeanor. There was something about Kael, something that set him apart from the other soldiers she had worked with. "I hope that's true." Kael smiled faintly, but there was no arrogance in it. "I don't claim victory until everyone is safe," he said. His voice carried calm authority, but also an unshakable sense of duty. Alara was intrigued. Humans could be strong, resourceful, clever, but there was something else about him. Something that almost defied explanation. They left the command center and walked toward one of the colonies that had been recently attacked. As they approached, a small commotion drew their attention. A group of alien raiders had landed near a storage facility. They were lightly armored but fast, armed with strange energy weapons. Human defenders were outnumbered and scrambling to organize. Without hesitation, Kael moved forward. Alara followed, curious and cautious. What happened next amazed her. Kael seemed to anticipate the aliens' every move. He dodged blasts with ease, moved through the chaos with precision, and struck with calculated force. One by one, he disarmed raiders, directing human defenders to cover and retreat points. Within minutes, the raiders were retreating, some captured, others fleeing back to their ship. The human defenders were shaken but unharmed. Alara could hardly believe what she had witnessed. She had seen elite soldiers before, but Kael's movements were something else entirely. It was as if he could see the future, predicting what his enemies would do next, and countering it perfectly. Yet there was no recklessness in his actions, no desire for glory. He acted out of duty, protecting the people in his care. After the fight, Alara approached him. "Lieutenant, how do you do it? How do you fight like that?" she asked, genuinely curious. Kael shook his head, brushing dust from his uniform. "I don't fight for myself. I fight for those who cannot defend themselves. That's all." There was a quiet intensity in his gaze that made Alara pause. She had faced countless warriors in her career, But Kale's strength was not just physical. It was something deeper. Something born of principle and unwavering determination. Over the next few days, Elara observed Kale closely. She watched him train with other soldiers, noting how he corrected their movements, how he anticipated problems before they arose. He spent hours reviewing battle plans, calculating strategies, and even designing improvised defenses using the limited resources available on Kalaris. The humans under his guidance seemed to trust him completely, inspired not just by his skill, but by his dedication. One evening, as the twin suns set over the horizon, Elara walked with Kale along a ridge overlooking the settlement. The sky was painted in shades of red and gold, the wind carrying the scent of alien flora. For the first time, she allowed herself to ask a more personal question. "Lieutenant, why do you do this? Why risk so much for people who may never know your name?" Kale looked out at the horizon, his expression thoughtful. "Because someone has to," he said simply. "If not us, then who?" Humans. We survive not because we're the strongest or the fastest, but because we refuse to give up. We protect, we adapt, and we fight when it matters most. That is what it means to be human. Elara was struck by the simplicity and truth in his words. Humans were not inherently superior to other species in terms of technology or power, but they possessed qualities that could make them legendary. Resilience, courage, loyalty, and ingenuity. Kale embodied all of them. The calm of the evening did not last long. A sharp alert sounded from the colony's monitoring system. Alien ships had been detected in orbit, moving toward the planet in coordinated formation. They were larger, more numerous than the small raiding parties they had faced before. Alara's heart sank. The reports had warned her that a major attack could happen at any moment, but seeing it confirmed on the sensors was different. Kale's expression hardened. "This is it," he said quietly. "They're coming for the colonies. We need to be ready." Elara felt a mix of dread and admiration. She had faced dangerous battles before, but the determination in Kale's eyes gave her hope. He did not flinch, did not hesitate. He was ready to face overwhelming odds, not for glory, but for duty. They returned to the command center, issuing orders and preparing defenses. Every human on the planet was mobilized. The settlers, soldiers, and even the engineers and farmers took up positions, guided by Kale's calm authority. He moved among them, checking weapons, giving advice, and instilling courage. Elara observed silently, feeling the weight of what she was witnessing. The humans of Kalaris were ordinary people in many ways, but under Kale's leadership, they were becoming something extraordinary. That night, Elara could not sleep. She stood by the window of her quarters, looking out at the colony below. Lights flickered as humans worked tirelessly to fortify defenses. She thought about what she had seen in KL, the discipline, the courage, the almost supernatural ability to anticipate danger. She had been sent here as a peacekeeper, a neutral observer. But she realized that Kale was showing her something far greater than any report or mission could convey. Humans were capable of greatness. Not because of weapons, not because of size or speed, but because of their spirit. And if Kyle was any indication, they were capable of even more than anyone had ever imagined. As the first stars appeared in the sky, a message arrived on the comm system. The alien fleet was heading straight for Kalaris, faster than anticipated. Elara's pulse quickened. The battle to defend the human colonies was about to begin, and she knew that she would witness something extraordinary in the days to come. She was bound by duty to report and protect, but she could not ignore the sense of awe she felt for the soldier who had already shown her the true power of humanity. Kale stood beside her, looking out at the approaching threat. "We will defend them," he said simply. "No matter what." Elara nodded. In that moment, she realized that Kale was not just a soldier. He was a symbol of human resilience, courage, and potential. And she understood, with a certainty she could not ignore, that she was about to witness the beginning of something legendary. The twin suns disappeared beneath the horizon, and darkness settled over Kalaris. But within that darkness, a spark of human determination burned brighter than any star. The alien fleet loomed over Kalaris, their ships dark and menacing against the planet's blue sky. The colony's defenses, though prepared, were minimal compared to the size and firepower of the enemy forces. Commander Ilara Voss watched from the command center, her heart pounding as she observed Lieutenant Kale Rion moving through the chaos with steady determination. Every action he took seemed precise, almost beyond human capability. Kale's first priority was the settlers. Civilians were being moved into secure zones, guided by human soldiers who relied on his calm commands. Every movement was orchestrated to protect as many lives as possible. The aliens opened fire on the outskirts of the colony, targeting supply depots and communication hubs. Explosions shook the ground, dust and debris filling the air. Yet amidst the chaos, Kale remained unshaken. He directed a group of soldiers to set up defensive barricades, using whatever materials were available: metal panels, vehicles, even large crates stacked strategically. His mind moved faster than the situation, calculating angles, predicting enemy attacks, and ensuring the defenders had the best positions. Ilara followed him closely, noting how he not only fought but inspired those around him. The first wave of alien attackers reached the colony's perimeter. They were larger than the raiders Kale had faced before, equipped with energy shields and advanced weapons. Humans fired back with what they had, but Kale realized that conventional tactics would not be enough. He moved among his troops, giving instructions and adjusting positions with precision. Cover the left flank. Keep the energy barriers up. Focus fire on the lead ship, he shouted, and the soldiers responded instantly, executing his orders with perfect coordination. Kale himself engaged the enemy when necessary, demonstrating skill that seemed almost superhuman. He dodged blasts, disarmed attackers, and turned improvised weapons into effective tools. His movements were fluid and efficient, and he seemed to know where danger would strike before it even arrived. Ilara could hardly keep her eyes off him. She had seen human soldiers fight before, but Kale's combination of strength, strategy, and instinct was exceptional. Despite the odds, humans began to push back. They were smaller in number and had fewer resources, but Kale's leadership turned every weakness into an advantage. He used the terrain, forcing the alien forces into narrow passes where their numbers counted for less. He coordinated ambushes and trap placements, turning simple debris into deadly obstacles. Civilians and soldiers alike followed his lead without hesitation. As the battle raged, Kale noticed that the aliens were adapting to standard human tactics. They began to anticipate barricades and formations, pushing humans into corners. He realized that this was no ordinary enemy. They were intelligent, disciplined, and relentless. Kale took a deep breath, focusing on the next move. He could not simply react. He had to anticipate their strategy and outthink them. He gathered a small squad of elite defenders and moved to a higher ridge overlooking the battlefield. From this vantage point, Kale could see the enemy formations clearly. He quickly drew up a new plan, instructing his team to reposition and set traps in ways the aliens would not expect. He even devised improvised energy dampeners from damaged equipment, temporarily disabling enemy shields and turning the tide in specific areas. Ilara watched him with growing admiration. Every decision Kale made demonstrated not only intelligence but ingenuity. Humans had long been underestimated by alien species because they lacked natural weapons or immense strength, but Kale's mind was their greatest asset. With careful planning, swift execution, and fearless action, he transformed the human defenders from a desperate group into a coordinated, formidable force. The aliens, frustrated by the unexpected resistance, changed tactics. They sent in fast attack drones designed to bypass defenses and strike directly at key positions. Kale anticipated this and split his forces, luring the drones into narrow corridors where they could be neutralized. He used energy nets and improvised explosives to disable the drones, saving countless lives in the process. Every time a new threat emerged, Kale adapted instantly, his mind working faster than any algorithm or weapon system. Hours passed, and the sun began to set. The colony had suffered damage, but thanks to Kale's strategy, The losses were minimal compared to what could have happened. The alien forces, confused and frustrated by the unexpected resistance, began to retreat. Kale did not chase recklessly. He understood the importance of preserving his troops for the next wave. He reorganized the defenses, tending to the wounded and reinforcing barricades. Alara approached him, her face reflecting awe and concern. "Lieutenant, you've done something remarkable. I've never seen anyone fight like this." Kale shook his head, exhaustion visible in his posture. "This isn't about me," he said quietly. "It's about everyone here. Every person who stands, every life we protect, that's what matters." That night, the colony held a quiet assembly. Settlers, soldiers, and even the engineers and farmers gathered to acknowledge the human effort that had saved them. Alara spoke to the crowd, praising their courage and the leadership of Kale. But it was Kale himself who turned the focus away from himself, emphasizing the importance of teamwork, ingenuity, and courage. Alara spent hours reflecting on what she had witnessed. The humans on Kylaris had shown her a truth she had suspected, but never fully realized. Human potential was extraordinary, not in physical strength alone, but in resilience, creativity, and the will to protect others against impossible odds. Kale was the living embodiment of these qualities, rising above every limitation through skill, intelligence, and unwavering duty. The following morning, Kale resumed training and patrols. Alara noticed how methodical he was, even after the intense battle. He corrected mistakes, improved strategies, and motivated his troops, never allowing complacency to take hold. The humans around him responded with complete trust. Following his guidance instinctively, new intelligence arrived, indicating that the alien fleet was regrouping and planning a second, larger attack. This time, the threat was far greater. Kale studied the information carefully, considering not just the immediate danger, but the long-term survival of the colonies. He formulated a strategy that relied not only on human ingenuity but also on their ability to adapt rapidly to new challenges. As preparations began, Alara walked beside him. "Lieutenant, you've turned these people into something more than survivors. They trust you. Completely." Kale's expression remained calm. "Trust is earned through action, not words," he said. "We prepare for what's coming, and we face it together. That is all we can do." Alara felt a deep respect for him. Humans, she realized, had a unique way of confronting danger. They did not possess overwhelming natural power like some alien species, but they had qualities that made them unpredictable, resilient, and formidable. Kale had inspired her to see these qualities not as abstract ideas, but as living truths demonstrated in every action he took. The day of the second attack arrived. Alien ships descended in greater numbers than before, their weapons bristling with energy capable of leveling entire settlements. Humans took their positions, prepared for the battle that could decide the fate of Kylaris. Kale moved among them, offering words of encouragement, adjusting positions, and reinforcing the defenses. Every decision was precise, every movement calculated. When the aliens struck, it was as if Kale had anticipated their every move. He led ambushes, redirected forces, and used the terrain to maximum advantage. Human ingenuity turned damaged structures into cover, and even children's simple devices were repurposed as alarms and decoys. The humans fought not with brute strength, but with creativity, coordination, and courage. Kale personally intercepted alien forces attempting to breach critical zones. His reflexes and strength were remarkable, but it was his strategic mind that truly made the difference. He predicted enemy formations, countered ambushes, and found weaknesses in the alien approach. Every time the aliens adapted, Kale adapted faster. By the end of the battle, the aliens were retreating once more, their morale shattered by the humans' resistance. Kale stood among the defenders, exhausted but unbowed. Alara approached him, her voice filled with admiration. "Lieutenant, I don't think anyone has ever done what you just did. You've turned the tide against a force no one thought we could stand against." Kale looked around at the survivors, at the people whose lives had been spared, and smiled faintly. "We all did this," he said. "Humans survive by working together, by thinking, by refusing to give up. That is what makes us strong." Alara realized she had witnessed the beginning of something extraordinary. Kale was not just a skilled soldier. He was a symbol of human potential. The battles had shown that humans, though seemingly ordinary, could achieve the impossible when led by courage, intelligence, and an unbreakable sense of duty. As the sun set on the battered colony, Alara knew that the war for Kalaris was far from over. But she also knew that with Kael leading, humans could face any challenge. She had seen firsthand how one human, bound by duty and determination, could inspire an entire people to greatness. And she understood, with certainty, that the legend of the human spirit was only beginning. The human colonies of Kalaris had barely recovered from the second attack when a new threat emerged. The alien forces returned, larger and more organized than before. Their warships, bristling with energy cannons and advanced technology, hovered ominously over the planet. Scouts reported elite alien units landing on strategic points, cutting off supply lines and preparing to strike with overwhelming force. Commander Alara Voss watched the monitors in tense silence. The colonies were outmatched, and the human defenders were exhausted from previous battles. Yet, at the center of it all, Lieutenant Kael Rion moved with quiet determination. There was no fear in his eyes, only focus. Alara had seen him perform extraordinary feats before. But now, the stakes were higher, and the challenge greater. She sensed that Kael was about to surpass all expectations. Kael convened his officers and defenders. His voice was calm but commanding. "This battle will test everything we have. We will not fight blindly. Every action matters. Every life matters. Prepare your positions, anticipate their moves, and adapt. We survive through skill, strategy, and courage." He divided the forces into specialized squads, assigning each to critical points. Civilians were moved to underground shelters, while able-bodied volunteers joined defensive lines. Kael personally inspected barricades, energy shields, and improvised weapons, ensuring that every weak point was reinforced. He encouraged creativity, turning damaged vehicles and debris into cover and traps. His mind worked like a machine, calculating angles, predicting enemy behavior, and finding opportunities where others saw only danger. The aliens struck at dawn. Their attack was faster and more coordinated than any before. Elite units landed near the main colony, using advanced cloaking to approach undetected. Kael had anticipated their strategy. He deployed decoys and set up ambush points, forcing the aliens into confined areas where their numbers counted for less. His soldiers moved with confidence, knowing Kael had accounted for every possibility. Kael himself engaged the front lines. His movements were precise and fluid, a combination of strength, speed, and strategy. He deflected energy blasts, disarmed attackers, and used improvised tools as deadly weapons. His presence inspired the humans around him. Every soldier, civilian volunteer, and engineer fighting alongside him acted with renewed courage. They knew that Kael would lead them to victory. As the battle escalated, the aliens unleashed a massive assault on the colony's central hub, targeting energy generators and communication towers. Kael realized that conventional defense would not hold. He needed to take decisive action. Climbing to higher ground, he coordinated a counterattack, using his intimate knowledge of the terrain and improvised weaponry. Explosions shook the ground as alien units were caught in traps and ambushes. Kael moved through the chaos like a force of nature, striking precisely where needed, guiding human defenders with exact instructions. Alara watched in awe. She had seen humans fight with courage, but Kael's ability to lead, inspire, and execute complex strategies under extreme pressure was something else entirely. He was more than a soldier. He had become the embodiment of human potential. His determination was unbreakable, and his mind worked faster than any enemy algorithm. The alien commander, realizing their usual tactics were failing, deployed their heaviest weapon. A war mech larger than any human building, armed with energy cannons capable of leveling entire sectors. It moved with terrifying speed, crushing obstacles and soldiers alike. The humans scattered, but Kale did not falter. He analyzed the mech's movements, finding weaknesses in its armor and patterns in its attacks. With a handful of elite defenders, Kale devised a bold plan. Using energy nets, improvised explosives, and precise strikes, they disabled the mech's mobility systems, forcing it to the ground. Kale himself climbed onto the massive machine, targeting its energy core with calculated precision. Every strike was deliberate. Every movement timed perfectly. Sparks flew. Metal groaned. And finally, the mech collapsed in a cascade of smoke and fire. The humans cheered, but Kale's focus never wavered. He knew the battle was not over. Alien reinforcements continued to pour in. But Kale's leadership had transformed the human defenders. They fought with unity, courage, and intelligence, turning the tide against a superior enemy. His actions elevated them all, showing what humans could achieve when guided by discipline and determination. As the day progressed, Kale's body and mind pushed beyond ordinary limits. His reflexes became faster. His strength seemed amplified, and his strategic thinking reached near-legendary levels. Elara noticed that Kale moved almost as if he were in multiple places at once, coordinating, striking, and inspiring simultaneously. He had become more than human in that moment, a living force that others could rally around and fear could not break. The aliens, shocked by the humans' unexpected resilience, began to retreat. Their elite units were decimated, their warships damaged, and their morale shattered. Kale, exhausted but unyielding, did not allow complacency. He continued to lead, ensuring that every alien threat was neutralized and that human survivors were protected. After the battle, Kale surveyed the battlefield. Smoke rose from destroyed alien ships, and humans tended to the wounded. The colony had suffered, but it had survived. Humans had faced an overwhelmingly powerful enemy and had prevailed, not through brute force alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and relentless determination. Elara approached him, her voice trembling with admiration. "Lieutenant, I've never seen anything like this. You've done what no one thought possible." Kale shook his head, weary but resolute. "I did not do this alone. Humans survive because we adapt, because we work together, because we refuse to give up. This victory belongs to everyone here, to every person who stood and fought." Yet even as he spoke, Elara could see it, the transformation that had begun in the first battles had reached its peak. Kale's presence, his abilities, and his unwavering courage had become something extraordinary. He was no longer just a soldier. He had become a symbol of human potential, a living testament to what determination, intelligence, and duty could achieve. That night, as the colonies rebuilt and the survivors celebrated, Elara reflected on the events she had witnessed. Kale had shown her that humans were capable of far more than she had imagined. They were resilient, inventive, and brave. They could face overwhelming threats and emerge victorious, guided by principles and a will that refused to break. Kale did not rest. He walked among the colonists, helping where needed, offering encouragement, and preparing for any future threats. His actions were quiet yet powerful, inspiring the humans around him to continue striving, to protect one another, and to never give up. Elara understood, more clearly than ever, that Kale had become a living legend, not because of glory, but because of duty, courage, and the extraordinary potential within every human. He had transformed before her eyes, rising above ordinary limits to become a figure of hope, strength, and inspiration. The stars shone brightly over Kalaris that night, reflecting the determination and courage of the humans below. Kale, ever vigilant, stood watch over the colony, ready for whatever challenges might come next. Alara knew that she had witnessed the birth of a living war god, not through reckless violence, but through the essence of humanity itself, discipline, intelligence, and an unbreakable sense of duty. As the first light of dawn touched the colony, humans began to rebuild with renewed hope. Kale's actions had not only saved lives but had awakened something deeper within them, a belief in their own strength, a realization that they could achieve the impossible when united by courage and determination. Alara watched Kale from the command center, her admiration growing with every passing moment. He had changed the course of history on Kaelaris, and perhaps, she thought, across the galaxy. Humans, small and often underestimated, had the power to rise above the greatest challenges when guided by vision, strategy, and an unyielding spirit. And Kale, bound by duty and driven by purpose, would continue to lead them, not as a conqueror, but as a protector, a symbol, and a living embodiment of human greatness. The legend of his deeds had begun, and it would inspire generations to come. The aftermath of the battle left Kaelaris scarred but alive. Smoke still rose from destroyed alien ships, and the ground bore the marks of countless explosions. Buildings had been damaged, supplies lost, and yet, the colony remained standing. Survivors moved among the ruins, tending to the wounded, salvaging what they could, and comforting those who had lost loved ones. Commander Ilara Voss walked among them, observing the resilience and determination that seemed to radiate from every human. She could still see Kale Rion at the center of it all, coordinating repairs, checking on the injured, and offering guidance wherever needed. Despite the exhaustion on his face, his movements were precise, purposeful, and calm. He had fought through unimaginable odds, and yet, he remained devoted to the people he had protected. The human colonies were alive with activity. Engineers rebuilt structures using salvaged materials. Farmers began to tend the damaged fields, ensuring food supplies would recover. Soldiers continued patrols, keeping watch for any lingering threats. All of this happened under Kale's guidance, but it was clear that the people had been inspired by him. They moved with confidence and determination, knowing that they could face whatever challenges came next. Ilara approached Kale as he examined a damaged communication tower. "Lieutenant," she said, "you've done more than just fight. You've shown them that they can survive, that they can rebuild. I've seen soldiers follow orders before, but this is something else entirely." Kale paused, looking out over the settlement. "They've always had it in them," he said quietly. "I just help them see it. Humans survive because we refuse to give up, because we help each other, because we act when others might hesitate. That is our strength." Ilara nodded, understanding more clearly than ever what he meant. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, nor the most advanced in technology, yet their combination of ingenuity, resilience, and loyalty made them formidable. Kale had not only demonstrated this power but had awakened it in everyone around him. The alien threat had retreated for now, but it was clear that they would return eventually. Scouts reported that surviving enemy ships had withdrawn to distant systems, regrouping for future attacks. Yet the humans of Kaelaris were no longer ordinary colonists. They had faced a superior enemy and survived, guided by a leader who had turned them into a cohesive, capable force. Kale convened a meeting with Ilara and other senior officers. He reviewed the damage, assessed the needs of the colony, and made plans for long-term defenses. He emphasized training, preparation, and resource management, ensuring that the humans could defend themselves even without external aid. Every decision he made was calculated, thoughtful, and aimed at empowering the people. Ilara watched him, fascinated. Kale's strength had never been about brute force. It had been about strategy, foresight, and the ability to inspire others to rise to their potential. Humans had a reputation for being adaptable and clever, but Kale had elevated these qualities to something legendary. He had become more than a soldier. He had become a symbol of hope, courage, and human greatness. Days turned into weeks, and Kaelaris slowly returned to normal. Buildings were rebuilt, crops replanted, and defenses strengthened. The human colonies, once vulnerable and isolated, had become organized, capable, and resilient. Settlers and soldiers alike looked to Kale for guidance, and he continued to lead with humility, always emphasizing the collective effort rather than personal glory. Ilara found herself walking with Kale along a ridge overlooking the colony. The twin suns had risen, casting a golden light across the landscape. The colonies were bustling with activity, and for the first time in weeks, there was a sense of peace. "You've changed this place," Ilara said, breaking the silence. "You've changed them." Kale shook his head. "They changed themselves. I only showed them what they were capable of. Humans are stronger than anyone expects, not because of weapons or strength, but because we refuse to give up. That is who we are." Ilara smiled, feeling a deep sense of admiration and respect. She had seen many leaders in her career, but none like Kale. He had transformed ordinary humans into heroes, not by forcing them, but by inspiring them. He had become a living example of the extraordinary potential within every human being. The news of Kalaris's victory spread quickly across nearby star systems. Other human colonies, previously isolated and vulnerable, now saw what was possible. The humans of Kalaris had faced a superior enemy and survived. They had done so through courage, ingenuity, and unity. Kale had become a legend, not just on this planet, but across the galaxy, as a symbol of human potential and determination. Ilara watched Kale interact with the colonists. He offered advice, helped repair structures, and trained young recruits. He did not seek recognition or reward. His actions were driven by duty, compassion, and a sense of responsibility. The people followed him willingly, inspired not by fear or authority, but by respect and admiration. Even the children of the colony seemed to look up to him. They mimicked his movements during training exercises, eager to learn and contribute. Their laughter echoed across the rebuilt streets, a testament to resilience and hope. Kale smiled at them, encouraging their efforts while teaching them the importance of discipline and teamwork. Ilara reflected on everything she had witnessed over the past weeks. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy. They lacked the size, power, or advanced technology of other species. Yet they possessed something far more significant: a combination of courage, intelligence, and unwavering determination. Kale had embodied these qualities, and in doing so, had shown the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The night fell over Kalaris, and the colony was calm. Fires from previous battles had been extinguished, and the streets were filled with people going about their work. Kale stood on a hill overlooking the settlement, his eyes scanning the horizon. There was still danger in the galaxy. But for now, the people were safe. He had done more than defend a colony. He had instilled confidence, courage, and hope in the hearts of all who lived there. Ilara joined him, her gaze following his. "Do you ever rest?" she asked lightly, though she knew the answer. Kale smiled faintly. "Rest is important, but duty never ends. As long as people need protection, we must be ready. That is our responsibility." Ilara nodded. "You've shown them what it means to be human." Kale looked at her, his expression calm but resolute. "Being human is more than survival. It is courage, determination, and care for one another. That is what makes us strong. That is what makes us capable of greatness." The galaxy beyond Kalaris remained unpredictable and dangerous, but humans were no longer to be underestimated. They had faced overwhelming odds and survived, guided by courage, strategy, and the unyielding spirit of one extraordinary man. Kale had transformed from a soldier into a symbol, a living representation of what humans could achieve when united by purpose and driven by duty. Ilara watched as the people of Kalaris celebrated quietly, rebuilding their lives, sharing stories of bravery, and honoring those who had fought alongside them. The colony was not just surviving, it was thriving. Every action taken by Kale and the human defenders had strengthened not only the settlement but also the belief in human potential across the stars. Kale walked through the streets, helping repair structures, speaking with survivors, and offering guidance. There was no arrogance in his actions, no desire for fame. He had become a legend not for personal glory, but for the protection and inspiration of others. The people looked to him with trust and admiration, and he guided them with quiet strength and unwavering dedication. Ilara felt a deep sense of pride in what she had witnessed. Humans, underestimated and often overlooked, had faced a threat greater than themselves and emerged victorious. They had done so through ingenuity, courage, and unity, qualities that Kale had amplified in everyone around him. She realized that this was only the beginning. Humans, she thought, would continue to shape the galaxy, not with brute strength, but with the extraordinary combination of intelligence, determination, and heart. As dawn approached, Kale stood once more on the hill, looking at the settlement below. The colony was alive. The people were safe, and the future seemed brighter than it had in weeks. He knew that challenges would come again, but he also knew that humans were capable of facing them, rising above every obstacle through courage, discipline, and unity. Ilara joined him in silence, watching the first rays of the sun touch the rebuilt colony. "You've given them more than survival," she said softly. "You've given them hope, courage, and belief in themselves." Kyle looked at the horizon, his expression calm but determined. "We all carry that potential. Humans are capable of greatness, not because of power or weapons, but because we refuse to give up and because we protect one another. That is who we are. That is what makes us strong." The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but humans had proven that they could rise to any challenge. Kale, bound by duty and driven by purpose, had led them to victory and had become a living symbol of human potential. The legend of Kale and the human defenders of Kalaris would inspire generations. A reminder that courage, intelligence, and determination could overcome even the greatest odds. And so, under the twin suns of Kalaris, the colony thrived. Humans rebuilt, trained, and prepared for the future. They knew that threats would come again, but they also knew that they were capable of facing them. Bound by duty, guided by courage, and inspired by Kale, they had become more than survivors. They had become a force to be reckoned with, a testament to the extraordinary potential within every human.